like physically in person. I'll make that another poll. Yes, Neil's down for it. Good. Thank you. Aaron's up. Haley, yes, please. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I would love that. That's why I'm here. I'm here because I wanna be with you folks. Um, weekly summary flip grids. Thank you so much for those of you who have submitted those. Not that I prefer flip grids over the written. I think that different people have different skill set, but it sure is nice to see who you are and get to hear you. I think that that's been really helpful, just as far as me feeling like I'm still a part of the people, I guess. Well, I went to Portland this weekend and I visited my daughter. She's a freshman in college and this was her first parent visit. And it was glorious. I was so patient. I didn't wake her up a single day. I let her sleep as long as she wanted. But it was so good to be with her. I can't describe it. I can't. So for those of you freshmen that are here from spaces and places, just you got to know that your people are thinking about you. I hope that they're thinking about you and wishing you all the best. I know this semester's been really hard for her, and I've heard it from students on campus as well. It's hard to connect. It's hard to meet people. It's hard to, it's not the case in our culture right now where you can see somebody who's got cool shoes and you can walk up to them really easily and be like, I like your shoes, It's like, no, COVID, 6 feet, stay away. So my respect to you all that still keep showing up, even when it doesn't feel like you're connected and it's a little bit hard. I appreciate you. I do. Okay. Let's see. Oh, come on. We don't want to do that. Thank you, Mr. Zoom. Mr. Zoom. All right. Here we are lecturing about stuff. I'll get to housekeeping in a minute, but I wanted to wrap up with some of the questions that you guys had about schizophrenia mostly, and some treatment modalities, and just a little bit of nuance here and there regarding some other disorders. So our first question, are schizophrenic people unable to process what other people are asking, as seen in the video that we watched last Wednesday? Well, now Etta thought she was answering those questions. She did. She thought she took conversational turns. She would wait for him to speak, and then she would speak. And then even though what she was saying did not make as much sense to us as we're comfortable with, she was still speaking in turn. She understood the social construct of turn taking. And as difficult and different as that was to witness, and it's really, really powerful. A lot of schizophrenic individuals understand interactions with people. It's almost, imagine, if you will, that they have this movie reel, and this would be high functioning schizophrenic. They have this movie reel that's playing, right, constantly, and the size of the reel and the size of the screen the amount of the screen it takes up changes depending upon where they're at. One of the things that we know is that for individuals who are schizophrenic, they become incredibly symptomatic during times of stress. So anybody want to hazard a guess as to what's been happening over the last, I don't know, since March for individuals with pre-existing mental health issues? Anyone?
Can I just say it?
Go for it.
They've been exacerbated due to like being stuck inside, not being able, a lot of people have outlets like going out or just things that relieve their stress. They don't have access to it all, and being cooped up inside with just your thoughts is not beneficial for a lot of people.
Thank you, Caleb. But not only that, like not only do you not have your regular routines, which is a lot of regulation for individuals with pre-existing mental health issues, it is compounded because there's this disruption for everybody, right? So not only am I insecure in and of myself, right? I have these vulnerabilities. Now those spaces and places and people that I used to rely upon being consistent, being helpful, all of those things, now those are totally variable as well. So it has exacerbated. Ryan, thank you for that. Yes, call your parents once a week or every day. Send them a note. Like, you could text them, that's it. Even if you share TikTok or an Instagram, like, that's communicating. Neil, yes, isolation makes it so much worse. Now, anybody want to guess as to what we've seen as the increase for diagnoses for mental health issues? What do you think? Go ahead and put something in the chat. Anxiety, absolutely. Depression, yes, of course. Depression. There's a lot of depression as a result of isolation, and the anxiety comes from a lot of the disruption. Go ahead and try to find a counselor for a teenager right now. The people that I know that are in the counseling profession, it is so huge, right? It is so huge. But they're booked out. They're booked out until like January. A lot of them are booked out until January because teenagers, right? When Kayla mentioned the lack of social skills development, like, I mean, we've got kids that are supposed to be moving into kindergarten and first grade, and they're supposed to be socializing with their peers. I mean, that's one of the great benefits of academic life, is that you get to be with your peers, you get to work on social constructs and rules, and you get to broaden your perspectives. When you're not leaving your house, you're not broadening your perspectives. When you don't have that casual conversation in the hallway, in the bathroom, walking across campus, maybe you're a kid on the playground or a grown-ass person on the playground, no judgment. You don't have that. You don't have that, and that exacerbates everything exponentially. So yeah, I mean, we're going to have some definite differences in social development. And then again, right now for adolescents, their peers are supposed to be so much of who they are and how they see themselves, right? When we think about Erik Erikson, identity versus identity confusion, right? And intimacy versus isolation. I know that a lot of you communicated about that. Autonomy versus shame and doubt. Like, all of those things are being really curtailed because we're missing a lot of the normal interactions. So even pre-industrial time, even at tribal levels, we still have social constructs, we still have social contracts, and not being able to engage in those is definitely hampering development. Great insights, you guys. Thank you for that. Is it possible for someone to develop a disorder at a later stage in life without trauma and without previous physical symptoms? Yes, it's possible for somebody to develop a disorder later on in life without trauma and without previous physical symptoms. But I would say that that happens rarely. When we think about nature and nurture and the magical dance that happens between genetics and psychology and environment to create disorders and exacerbate them, there is a it's huge. It's huge. So when we talk about predispositions, I think that's what we get into a lot. I think there are certain individuals with life experiences and DNA that are just predisposed. But is it possible? Yes, it's possible. Why does schizophrenia present itself later in one's life? Schizophrenia actually normally shows up around adolescence, and some of the thought is that it's about hormones. Some of the thought is it's about adjustment. There are lots of different ways and nuances associated with that. I don't know. I can't answer it. My guess is going to say that it has to do with brain maturity. One of the things that we see is that there's when we talk about the etiology or where schizophrenia comes from, stress, absolutely, but we see significant brain differences, especially like in the size of the ventricles and the space in an individual's brain, not between the squishy stuff, right, but the actual space in the ventricles where the cerebral spinal fluid goes, just deep inside the brain. And they're misshapen in individuals with schizophrenia. There is a tangible physical difference. So a chicken and an egg, right? Does that brain difference result in schizophrenia, or is that somehow a predisposition? Schizophrenia and thought disorders are one of those things that's just really hard for us to put a finger on it. We can have related to schizophrenia, but tangentially and not literally, and there's no pun intended with the tangent thing on the disorganized symptoms. But what we run into with individuals is that later on in life, they can develop things like paranoia, drug-induced psychosis. There are a lot of people who can drink so much alcohol or smoke so much pot and, participate in substance abuse or misuse and develop a psychosis that oftentimes once they go through withdrawals and then no longer have exposure to those substances, they tend to not have those symptoms anymore, but it's a delicate, delicate dance. Why would you suppose female onset is farther away from puberty to males? Neil, do you mean earlier or later? I think my guess is that you would mean later. I think that has to do with social roles and regulations. I think girls are so much more adept at navigating emotions. And culturally in America, they have been encouraged to behave. And I think that they fake it for longer. I want to say that we're not seeing, they mask it better. We also see masking being more efficient for girls with ADHD as well, and on the autism spectrum. And that could just be culturally. But I don't have anything beyond a hypothesis on that. Thank you for offering me the opportunity to suppose something. Is treatment for schizophrenia better with medication therapy or a mix of both? Absolutely, the mix of both, absolutely. I'm glad that you guys asked a lot of treatment questions because we didn't get to talk about that as specifically. But remember, I talked about the token economy and about how individuals can, really almost be trained, for lack of a better word, or reinforced into positive behavior. Emmanuel asked the question, when does autism usually develop by? We can see individuals on the autism spectrum pretty freaking young nowadays. I want to say that I've seen some people report diagnostic, especially of individuals who are lower functioning autism, right, that have very severe behavioral symptoms, as young as 2 and 3. That's really when we start to have social expectations. But if you want to think about it, if at 6 weeks of age an infant is able to participate, and that's again normative, we all know I don't like that word, but if at 6 months of age a child is able to participate in the social construct of a social smile, right, like smiling back at somebody because out of social engagement, and we don't see that, like theoretically, but you'd have to really, really be paying attention. Like you'd have to really be paying attention. I want to say the most glaring symptoms and deficits don't actually start showing up until about 2 years of age. What is the best advice for somebody who is too introverted to go to a therapist or get help? Well, self-help books, depending upon severity. Self-help books, but if the introversion is so severe that it presents as anxiety, that might just have to be a leap, right? I could see somebody intervening on behalf of that somebody, right? I mean, if there's that distress, there was a suggestion to do counseling over the phone. It's a lot to even reach out to a counselor and ask for help. I have a thread inside my mask and it is tickling my nose. Yeah, that's a tough one. Let one person in that can be your advocate. That's the best suggestion. Yeah. Find just one person that can be your advocate that you can go to and say, I am paralyzed by this. I don't know what to do. Can you help me? And you don't risk a lot. You don't roll the dice a whole lot. But be mindful of who you're choosing. Make sure it's not the lowest hanging fruit and it's somebody who really can be an advocate for you. What disorders most commonly go underdiagnosed? Oh, I want to say alcoholism. Um, well, I wouldn't say underdiagnosed. I would say that that often gets misdiagnosed as something. Like oftentimes people will go to the doctor and they'll be like, this is how I feel. This is what I'm doing. And the doctor's like, oh, you're anxious. Oh, you're depressed. And then, you know, after a period of time, come to find out you're not really getting better. The meds aren't helping. And then there's some disclosure that alcohol ends up being a pretty significant issue. Caitlin is wondering if eating disorders go undiagnosed. I don't know. That's a hard one. That's a hard one because I think that eating disorders, alcoholism, like some of those impulse control, some of those self-harm, right? Like some of, oh God, yeah. No, eating disorders culturally, that's a woman's thing, right? Like even the research today would say that it's most often, you know, diagnosed or it's predominant in middle-class white women. And we know nowadays that that research is bogus. Like that statistic is just not accurate. Um, gay men have huge body dysmorphic issues, and body dysmorphia is when you are incapable of accurately perceiving your body. And one of the ways that they test for dysmorphia is they put an individual in front of a mirror, and then they have the individual take a dry erase marker and outline their physical shape. And that's one of the ways that I've seen body dysmorphia. Or, you know, people end up wearing excessively baggy clothes, right? And thinking that that's what they need, right? Because they're a large person, so they're going to buy a large shirt when really they're an extra small. Um, yeah, I would say I think that eating disorders, self-harm, alcoholism, I think that those things where the disorder itself is also a coping mechanism, because eating disorders are coping mechanisms. Alcoholism is a coping mechanism. Pyromania is a coping mechanism. The trichomania is a coping mechanism. I feel like a lot of people will show up and they'll be diagnosed with one thing when in actuality, probably the primary issue that they have is substance abuse or an eating disorder or self-harm, an impulse control issue. All right, lots of anorexia with, Neil, do you mean male climbers? Because, I mean, we see, okay, well, I mean, wrestling is another area where we have major eating issues and a lot of body dysmorphia as well. A lot of athletics, yes. Dancers, gymnasts. Anorexia is pretty, runners, right? Anorexia is here, and this is the way that I remember it. This is not really, it's not politically incorrect, but this is the way that I remember it, right, when I was learning it. Individuals who are bulimic also calorie restrict. Purging is not something that's special to bulimia. Uh, Individuals with bulimia will not calorie restrict. They will eat, and then they will find ways to either to purge it or to remove it. And that can be from, you know, literally purging or exercising excessively. An individual who is anorexic has maybe some of those same behaviors, but they really focus on calorie restriction. They really focus on calorie restriction, and they are 15 to 20% below body mass index. That's, I mean, really what it comes down to is that number, and then all of the associated behaviors along with it. That was a great question. I appreciated that one. Thank you. How often are electrical convulsive shock therapies used, and why are they effective? As I mentioned last week, they are used very, very, very sparingly and primarily for major depressive disorder. And no, they have such a low success rate that they're primarily used as an absolute last case resort. Are people with mental illness more prone to other medical diseases? Yes, and that primarily has to do with hygiene. the individual's ability. Remember when we talked about dysfunction, right? And the one of the ways that we kind of signal a disorder is if there is an inability for that individual to take care of themselves, right? Whether it's their activities of daily living, which are just general hygienic self-care, feeding, hygiene, things like that. We also have being employed, taking care of your kids, maintaining, social responsibilities, things like that. Um, but what we run into is hygiene issues, right? They end up eating poorly. They don't take care of their teeth. They don't have regular doctor's visits. This is if they don't have a strong advocate, and depending upon how severe their disorder is. So they're not necessarily more like prone, like genetically vulnerable. It's just there is a combination of symptoms and lifestyle factors that end up informing that. What is it called when somebody shows anorexic symptoms for a period of time, but then binges for a period of time and then constantly, they can have complex eating disorder. They can have a dual diagnosis of anorexia and bulimia, but it really has to do with weight. Anorexia is for those people who have been, for lack of a better term, successful in their pursuit. Generally, bulimic individuals are much more in a healthier weight range. It's just that all of their behaviors are not healthy. Are positive or negative symptoms more common? And I think that this is referring to schizophrenia. And I want to say, I don't know. I do not have the answer to that question. It's been a long time since I've taught abnormal psychology. Like we saw with Etta, I think I know that it's very common for individuals with schizophrenia to have a mix of different types, negative, positive, and disorganized symptoms of schizophrenia. So I don't have a sense of which one occurs more frequently or which one's more common. Today's a cool day. I don't know. I love today. I don't know if you guys remember the slide from the first day of class. Do you? You remember the slide from the first day of class? Okay, thank you. I want to recognize the Shoshone, Bannock, and Paiute tribes that used to settle on this land in their nomadic life and used to exist along the Boise River for periods of time. I think that one of the ways that we make reparations, if we're not going to start giving back what was taken, then acknowledging and honoring the first settlers and the true caretakers, the first recognized caretakers of this land. So Black, Ryan, the B is for Black. Yes, Black, Indigenous people, and people of color. And I will say, again, I acknowledge that I am a privileged person, and I still believe that there's much to learn for me. You guys have taught me so much already this semester. I'm very grateful, but as much as you are my students, I am also your student in getting to learn about who you are, where you come from, what your hopes and dreams are, and what you hope to do in your life. And it just worked out beautifully that this is a day on which we can recognize and celebrate Indigenous cultures. But this is also an introduction to social psychology, right? Remember how this is my favorite topic? Remember how I said, when I was in graduate school, I took an advanced social psych class, and the professor that I had for that class was the worst professor I had ever had, period. Like, it was awful, abhorrent. It was 3 hours, it was plastic slides, and it was a, projector, and we read 300 pages a week, and we had to fill in these sentences. Like, it was awful. But when I became a professor here, desperate to teach classes, they said, teach social psych. And I was like, oh God, I hate that topic. But I'd taken an advanced social psych class in my graduate school. So I was technically trained and able to teach the class. But boy, when I taught that class for the first time, I really realized that I should have been a social psychologist. I really should have. As much as I'd like to look at chaos and transition when we talk about developmental psychology, what I'm really about is understanding who we are in the context of others. And that's what social psychology is, right? Understanding who we are in the context of others. Now, I was so nervous to put this slide up on the first day of class. I'm always stupid nervous the first day of class, like so nervous I throw up nervous. Like I get so nervous because you never know. I had no idea what I was walking into the arena, the first time, all the technical difficulties. Like I get just stupid nervous. And on top of all that, I put this, what some people might see as a really controversial slide, you know, and I thought, oh God, am I going to get backlash for this? And I was really nervous to do that, but I knew that I could not start off this semester after having the summer that we had, after having been educated, you know, becoming, and woke is not a word I'm going to use for myself because I'm still waking up. I'm not woke yet, but I was born and raised in Boise, Idaho, right? I mean, I left long enough to get my PhD and then I came back and, you know, I'm a cisgendered individual married to a cis man. And I just have a lot of life that I don't understand and that I haven't been privy to. One of my best friends in graduate school, she and I have been hanging out for several years, and we went out shopping one day and we were standing in line, and this black woman comes up to her and she says to my friend, "Are you half black?" And I am shocked and appalled. I'm like, who does that? You know, and I was like, who asks that question? And my friend was like, "Yeah, I am." And I was like, "You're what?" Like, I had no idea. I had no idea. I mean, that is how sheltered I had been, and not for not wanting to experience things, but it was just the result of my environment. There was one black kid in my graduating class at Boise High in 1992. One, you know. My daughter graduated with individuals who were refugees from the Congo, refugees from Afghanistan. Now, whether or not she hung out with them during school, right, graduating with them is something different than actually knowing who they are. I'm not going to presume that she knows who they were, but the diversity was there. It's available. And so where we're at right now, culturally and contextually, to me is just an amazing space. Like, I am learning so much. Like, I didn't realize, like, things that are cultural appropriation that I had no clue. I had no idea that hoop earrings were cultural appropriation. I had no clue. None. But now that I know, I can do different. Okay? And so when I think about what we have available to us, and I think about that first day of the semester, and I wanted to let every student in this class that identified as anything, okay, as anything, anybody who has an identity different than mine, same as mine, however it was, this is your space, this is your time. And creating language and opportunity and declarations, right, to say this is your time, okay? It should have been a long fucking time ago, and I'm sorry for that, but for my opportunity and for my part and what I'm able to do, starting off the semester with a declaration of recognition, for me was the only way to go, okay? I could not have navigated this any other way that would have been true to me. And if I'm asking you to be authentic with me, then I've got to be authentic with you. So here we are, social psychology. Before we get into some nuts and bolts, here's a little housekeeping. Research option 2, clarification. I know that you guys had, all you need to submit for research option 2 by tonight at 11:59 p.m. is your summary, and you need to have 3 separate articles. Like, you need to write a summary, and they should be 3 separate entities. They can all be on one document. That's totally fine. So 3 summaries, and attach 3 PDF documents. That's it. Those are your articles. Like, you need to attach the PDF copies of the articles. Don't give me a web link. Attach, right, the PDF, and also submit the paper. All right, research option 1, new studies are posting this week. I think that we've seen one up already. And I know that we have at least one more coming this week. Look especially towards the end of the week. And I'm not sure what that little blue box was for that was down here, but any questions about housekeeping items that you guys want to throw up in the chat that I can address really quickly? Okay. Oh, Ryan has one. For research option 1, what is the length supposed to be? There is no length on research option 1. Yes, research option 1 is a summary of all 5 credits. No length requirement. It needs to be written in English, and it needs to be a summary of your experience. Research option 1 is due October 24th. Bailey, you only need one summary for all of your experiences. Yeah, Ryan, that was kind of curious. I hadn't realized until this morning that students had actually been editing the document. That was the intention with that was so that people could post comments and ask questions, not actually edit. So thankfully, none of the content was actually removed. It was just font typed and wonky things have done. But I have all those people's names. Cameron, if you want to write about just one response to one survey to one question, you can do that as long as it's authentic. There will not be a review or dead week before the final. Emily, depending upon where we're at content-wise, I would be willing to give you guys Monday of our 10th week, our final week, and you guys can take class that day, class time that day. But we don't have a review/dead week. Oh, that's a good point. Finn says that if you had saved a copy of the unit essay instructions for yourself, all that weird stuff wouldn't have been there. Yes, on research option 2, you do include theoretical, methodological, and discussion summaries. APA format is fantastic. Thank you, Veronica. All right, good housekeeping, folks. We're talking about social cognition. And it is, again, probably, I think, some of the most fascinating things to look at when we think. At the end of this unit, you're going to understand the concepts behind how certain behaviors and personalities change the way we think about ourselves and others. We're going to get into some of the social cognition today. We'll talk about social influence Monday or Wednesday and next Monday, and then get into relationships. And then at the end of this unit, you'll better understand how social society influences the way you or someone thinks. I just wanted to highlight, I think I know what was missing on that blue piece. I just want to highlight, we are slowing down real fast. Like next week, you don't have to read anything. Do you guys know you just read your last chapter for this class? Yeah, that just happened. You just read your last chapter for this class, okay? So be mindful of that. Like you're not going to have a concept check this week. You're not going to have one on Wednesday. And then that's it. Like you just took your last concept check if you took it on time. So yeah, you guys are definitely wrapping up. Yes, Ryan, we're going to have a unit for essay. Yep. All right. At the end of this unit, you'll have a better understanding of how society influences the way you or somebody else thinks. Now, what I want you to do, and I'm particularly kind of excited about this, is that I have, of course I'm excited about this, I have created you guys surely liked our activity, and had I known that that was going to be such a rousing success, I would have created a hell of a lot more this semester. But you liked our activity so much that I've got another one for you. And what we're going to do for this activity is I'm going to show you, I've got a Google slide. What you need to do is you need to save the slide, okay? Save the slide to your, I need to get back to my chats. You need to save the slide to your drive, right? The last person in the room. Here we go. So in the chat, I've placed the link to the Google slide. Save the slide to your drive, and then you can alter it. What I'm going to have you do is you'll notice that it has these two columns called aspect, and then intra versus inter. If you need to reference the textbook, I've also plugged in a link right here for you, so you can copy that if you guys need to reference intra versus interpersonal in your group work. But what you want to do is you want to assign, like I've done to motivation, it's an intrapersonal phenomenon. I want you to try to do that. Now, for the most part, it's either going to be intra or inter, but sometimes, infrequently, but sometimes it'll be both. All right? All right, I'm going to open all rooms. Feel free to help yourself and go check it out. What room are you in? Meg, what room are you in? Okay, I'll move you.
Yeah, I was the only person in my room.
All right, who was that speaking?
Isabel, sorry.
Isabel. Okay. Isabel, do you know which room you were in?
No, sorry.
You don't know the number? Okay. Well, that means I got to try to find you.
I was the only person in my room too.
Oh, well, Kaylee and Isabel, why don't you guys, I'm going to stop sharing. Why don't you guys just go ahead and take over Zoom and you guys
Oh
can
gosh.
just do your thing right here. I know it's happening. I'm going to turn the volume down so I won't.
Can I
Yep.
join in?
Yeah, everybody that's in this room gets to do this. I'm going to turn the volume down so you guys can not feel like I'm eavesdropping and feel like you're saying things.
Sorry if you guys can hear a little background noise. The office is right next to my room.
Good. Okay, how do you actually like do like the copying and get the slide? I never was able to figure that out. Whenever I go in like a room, I kind of just have everybody else do it because I don't know how to like.
So if you go onto the link that Dr. Henderson put in the chat and you click on the file option underneath the title, you'll have a make a copy option, a few options down, and then you can either copy the entire presentation or the selected slides, but it's like one slide, so.
Thank you.
So I'm looking at the textbook definitions of interpersonal and intrapersonal, and interpersonal topics include helping behavior, aggression, prejudice, and discrimination, attraction to and close relationships, group processes, and intergroup relationships.
Okay.
All right, so what do we think the first one is? It's a cognition.
Let's see.
What's interpersonal?
Intrapersonal includes emotions, attitudes, the self, and social cognition, the ways in which we think about ourselves and others. So I think cognition might be intrapersonal, not interpersonal.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
All right, so cognition. Then we have stress next.
Would that be the same?
I would yeah, I think it would be the same because we have more control of our own stress than I think other people would.
Yeah,
So,
I think so too.
yeah.
Let's see, racism would be
Would that be inter? Because it's kind of like when you're raised like kind of racist, you end up being racist.
yeah,
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
Well, you also can't be racist to yourself, really. So, yeah, I'd go inter.
let's see, romantic. Rep. I don't know what that's supposed to be abbreviated,
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I have no clue.
but I would say that romance would be interpersonal again because it kind of pertains to like attraction and close relationships.
Yeah. And it's not something you can really do to yourself.
Yeah, that's kind of true.
I think the argument actually could be made that stresses both.
Okay.
Yeah. It could be both, yeah.
Because it has to do with your like interpersonal like emotions and attitudes, and also kind of depends on like your environment, so that would be interpersonal.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it could yeah, it could definitely be both. Yeah.
Discrimination would be interpersonal for sure because like
Hmm.
it's a learned behavior that kind of goes against a group of people.
Yeah, for sure.
Hmm.
I think aggression would be intrapersonal because it's more of an emotion and attitude rather than like something that is experienced by a group or kind of like expressed as a group.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Surprise.
surprising would be. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say surprise would probably be the same then.
Yeah, I think like a lot of like the emotional kind of aspects of this are probably going to be interpersonal because just like they're not really going to be influenced by like other people just like existing.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, and then friend affiliation, that's inter. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Because it's just kind of like the social group you're involved with.
Hmm.
And guilt would be intra.
Hmm.
Yeah, for sure. And culture, probably back to inter.
Yeah, for sure.
Hey, how close are you folks to being done?
We've got one left.
Awesome.
Yeah, one more.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay, I'm gonna close all rooms.
And trauma, probably intra.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
I think.
It is. All right, will you guys go ahead and finalize your doc and go ahead and put it up here for me? All right, I'm gonna go ahead. Uh-oh. All right, remember you need to share your Google Doc with me in order for me to be able to open it. All right, all right, all right. Abby's group's got it. Mackenzie's got it. So let's start off just looking at these. I'm just going to click, oh, okay, okay. I think the only, so I feel like this group might have said both. I'm not sure about surprise. Surprise is an emotion, right? That's an internal experience. So I would challenge surprise. I would challenge friend affiliation as being both too. So I would say surprise is going to be intrapersonal because that's a self-contained emotion. So let's say you and your partner, your child comes to you and tells you and your partner that you're going to become grandparents, right? And they do some really kitschy, like give them a onesie that says grandma on them or something like that. And that one person, right, what might be surprising to one person isn't going to be surprising to somebody else. So remember that there's that individual difference in that emotional experience.
Can you screen share?
Oh, can you be needy? Of course. Thank you so much for reminding me that I wasn't doing that. I appreciate that reminder. I wasn't really being mean just now. I was being sassy, which is different than being mean, I think. I don't know. Let's see. Intra. So right here, stress. These individuals said intra, that stress could be intra and inter. I think that could be a both. I think that one could actually be a both. And I really do think trauma is a both as well. And one of the reasons why I would advocate for trauma being a both as well is the fact that we have transgenerational trauma from indigenous peoples to survivors of the Holocaust to, the list is astronomical of these differences that we see in people for whom their environment was so catastrophically and radically unsafe, demoralizing. I can't explain, all of the different ways that it is. How was it to think about this is a me thing versus this is a us thing, right? Because that's really what intra and inter gets you at. Now, having this be the exercise right now, because we're moving from psychology, which is intrapersonal, right? Which is all about me. It's how I see me. It's the individual experience. It's the individual difference. And now I'm asking you guys to shift and think about yourself or the self in the context of other. And that's really what we're shifting to when we talk about social psychology. So when I talk about my shifting awareness of, of all variations of humanity and what I'm getting to learn and how I'm being educated and staying vulnerable to that education as an individual of marked privilege, not just by my race, but in some cases my gender. Like I don't have toxic masculinity. Like that's not part of my space. And I can see today how that can radically impact an individual. So, and then I grew up with resources. I grew up not, I watched entirely too fucking much TikTok. It's so bad. If you guys ever want to send me TikToks, that's one of the reasons why on your exit tickets, I have that, see something cool, submit it here. I seriously watch all the TikToks. Anyway, the take a step forward thing, right? If you were to line up with your partner and take a step forward, I didn't have to worry about my college being paid for. My parents and I had different boundaries, but I had a 2-parent household until I was 19. I had free access to tutoring, right? Like, my privilege and the wealth that I have, like beyond financial stuff, independent of financial stuff. I'm still learning. I'm still learning about how privileged I am and what a gift it is. And I think one of the things that I really learned, and here is my commitment to you is I really learned that for my daughter what it means to have a parent who has already gone to college. So if any of you are first generation students in college, I got you. Come and talk to me. I can show you the ins and outs, the ways and means. She and I have talked about how to talk to a professor. She and I have talked about how to navigate an admissions website. Like, you would be, I was amazed at the amount of insight that I had, and how I was able to help her, where individuals who don't have parents, who, you know, if they are first generation college students, then they're really missing out on a lot of that, that cultural nuance and that resource. So I can be your resource if you need it. So shifting, right? Moving. And the first thing I want to do is we talk about social psychology and we talk about thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. But I just want to recognize this big, like bigger than the cultural differences that we see in the melting pot of America. And it's only a melting pot when everything comes together. So we're not actually melting yet. We're still in a pot that's on the slow warm, where we have some cross-pollination of cultures. It's a melting pot when we all become one color, and we're not there. And I don't mean literal, I mean figurative culturally. We have individualistic cultures, which is Americana at its best, right? A lot of Western countries really believe in autonomy, really believe in achievement, really like to focus on the individual and the opportunity of the individual. Whereas collectivist cultures are primarily invested and really have a different frame of reference, right? So in any given context, I am born and raised in an individualistic culture. My first thought is going to be, what is this for me? What is this for me and mine? Okay, because I'm a parent, so it's not just me, it's me and mine. What is this for me and mine? Okay? Whereas in a collectivist culture, when this situation happens, right, they believe in unity. They don't necessarily focus on autonomy. And they think of achievement, but they think of achievement in the advancement of all, not just the self, right? And the other thing is that when an individual in a collectivist culture behaves, it's a reflection, not just of that individual, but every person that that individual is related to. It's a serious, significant difference. So when, right, we think about, right, oh shit, I just had a thought. Sorry for that language, not sorry for that language. Here's my question to ask the Google. I have said, typed in things into Google in front of classes, and scary things have come up. But this is what I want to know right now. Is there a difference in COVID rates between collectivist oh, spelled country's wrong. Okay. This is my gut. My gut is going to tell me that there is going to be a difference. I don't know if I really trust this resource. Sure, this isn't my computer. I'll save something to it. Thank you for those of you in the front row laughing at me. All right. Okay, I just wanted a visual aid, right? Okay, then you want a visual? This is what you do, Kim. You do the search and you click on, oh, I don't know, images. Keep it simple. Oh, I don't know if this breaks it out into collectivist versus, oh, well, same damn file. That is too funny. Okay. Okay, collectivism versus individualism world map. Okay. Larger number represents stronger individualism. The red in the figure indicates extreme collectivism. Total confirmed cases per capita. Well, I guess that kind of makes sense, right? I mean, everything that's green up here, except for Australia. Australia's pretty red. Okay, well, my hypothesis was not borne out, but thank you for following me as I run down that rabbit hole. My hypothesis was that for those cultures where collectivism was the paramount, they were going to have less cases, fewer transmissions, because they would be considering all of the people in that space. What I didn't take into account, and that article didn't take into account either, is the type of government and the oversight as well. That's definitely going to play a role in how that is navigated. No, I'm not referring to people of the Fey culture here. What this is an acronym for is the Fundamental Attribution Error. FAE, the Fundamental Attribution Error. This is, right, we have situational biases, and then we have and then we have individual biases. Okay, so in the fundamental attribution error, I believe that when you screw up, it's because of your constitution. It's because of your personality. It's because of who you are. It's because of what you believe. Okay? Simultaneously, when something negative happens, and I am a player in that, well, the reason why that turned out negative is because of the situation. So if I get negative feedback, it's because, okay, so my teaching evals will be opening up soon, folks. Please fill them out and be sincere. That's all I have to say about those. But let's say I get my teaching evals from this semester, and they are deplorable, right? They are like bottom of the gutter. And I say, it was all those technology issues. Okay? Right? But then I look at my colleague Matt, who teaches over there, or he teaches in the arena at a different time during the week, and he has also gutter, evaluations. And I look at his and I say, oof, Matt sucks as a professor. That's the fundamental attribution error. When I assign, right, the cause of the situation to being your constitution, your personality, your persona, versus me assigning, right, when something goes wrong or bad for me, it's got to be the circumstance, all of these situations. Okay? Fundamental attribution error is really tricky, and related to the fundamental attribution error is this, what we call the self-serving bias, which is, this fundamental attribution error is an example of the self-serving bias that I just told you. Okay? I'm going to view anything, right, as being in a way that favors me the best. So if I am thinking I get a test score back, and the test score is amazing, right? This also has to do with locus of control, but and the test score is amazing, and I say, oh my God, I killed it on that test. I studied so hard. Okay, I get that test score back, and right, I see that I killed it on the test, and I say, that professor wrote such an easy test, it was a joke. Right? Both of those statements, self-serving bias, right? One of which I'm taking responsibility and saying, that was me, I'm awesome, right? The other one, I'm saying, this was just the luck of the draw. Either way, interpreting those situations to my benefit so I can look good and feel good and have agency is going to be a self-serving bias. I'm going to tell you guys what the just world phenomenon is, and then I'm going to let you go. The just world phenomenon is not karma. A lot of students read that and they say, it's just like karma. No, it's not. Okay? The just world phenomena is you get what you give. I think culturally in the media, we just had a situation come across us where a lot of people would have said, well, you get what you give. And that would be the just world phenomenon. or what comes around goes around, or God'll get you. Lots of different ways to talk about it. It's different from karma in that karma is the belief in right thought, right action. So if I were to throw a surprise party for my husband, and this surprise party involved balloons and friends and music and hanging out and all that stuff, and I thought I was doing something that was just really going to be awesome for him, and I create this experience and I have this party for him, and it totally sucks, right? And it totally sucks. Like, he hates it. Because my heart, right thought, right? Because my heart was in the right place, and just because it didn't turn out well doesn't mean it's a bad thing. Okay? And I would never throw a party for my Peter like that. Instead, I sent him on a fishing trip with him and his best buddies and his favorite cigars. So, because I know better. I'm the one that would want the big ass party with all the balloons and the friends and the dancing. All right, folks. I can't tell you how grateful I am that you keep showing up. It means a lot to me. Hang in there. Okay? Take care of yourselves. I'll see ya later.
Thank you so much.
You are
Thank
so
you.
welcome.
Thank
Have a
you.
great rest of your day.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
You guys are awesome.
Thank you.
You guys are awesome. Thank you. Thank you. It's an honor and a
Thank you.
pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. TAs, you guys are fantastic. I adore you all. I'll see you early Wednesday. Take care of yourselves and get grading, please.
Bye.
Bye.